Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first panel of the entire event. And I have a very fabulous group of people that will be speaking today at this panel. Firstly, to introduce myself, my name is Sai Borotu. I work as a project officer in the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, and I have mostly been working around the fields of police and prison accountability. Next up, we have Prahasini Arumugam, who works at NatWest Group, Aditya MK, who works at IBM, Medha Sandhil from Bright Circle, and we have Sonal Pradhan. Sonal, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I don't have introduction for you here.
Sure. So currently I work at 247 as a customer support executive. So I graduated in psychology and that's basically I'm from Odisha and it's been 1 year in Bangalore I have been working. So that's all about me.
Thank you. That's great. Um, so we have a very interesting panel today, and we are going to be speaking about trans and non-binary experiences at the workspace specifically. I'll just go ahead and hand it over to the speakers, and I'll just be using a few moderator questions to cue in or to trigger certain amounts of conversation. Now, the first question that I have, obviously, for all the panelists, and you can go one by one, is what does it mean for you to work for a company or organization where you feel a true sense of belonging as a trans or non-binary person? And can you give an example maybe of what you mean by that experience? The first on my screen that I can see is Aditya. So do you want to go first maybe?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. And to answer your question, so what it means to me to have a stable environment is like the sense of belongingness comes from uh, the confidence that I have that I can be myself, that I can bring myself to work, and also to have that innate feeling of stability that uh, no matter uh, who I identify as or what my sexuality is, what my identity is, uh, I will not be discriminated against, and I can be myself and still have the same job stability as everyone else. So that is at most important to me, because if we are in fear of losing our job, then everything else goes for a toss, and we will never have that belonging for us. And then comes with the additional benefits of having inclusive policies and uh, things that we are looking for in an organization when we come to work every day. So that, according to me, is what uh, makes me feel belong to the company that I work for. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Where the mind is without fear, as they say. Um, Medha, you're next on screen. Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sai. Belonging is so important that it's been identified as one of the five fundamental human needs, along with food, water, shelter, and safety. Every time I joined a new organization, I always get a rush of questions through my mind. Will I fit in with my new co-workers? Is it okay for me to be myself here? Will I belong? A true sense of belonging to me is to be able to be who I am, no questions asked. The same privilege that a straight cisgender person has, and in many ways, even queer cisgender people have. Um, Cisgender is basically a person whose sense of personal identity and gender corresponds with their sex assigned at birth. And by this, I mean that, a queer cisgender woman could still be female presenting outwardly. And so there would be less bias to her gender expression than a queer trans woman, queer trans man, or a queer non binary person. Something that definitely helps here is to try and collect as little information as possible about gender, because even if you have policies that help trans and non binary people, this still singles us out And a lot of the time, we don't want to be singled out. We want to blend, and we don't want to turn heads. Um, an important thing for me to feel a sense of belonging at work is when everyone's not only sensitive to pronouns, but they also actively use their pronouns in things like email signatures and their social media like LinkedIn. Um, I know a lot of cisgender people respect pronouns of their non-binary and trans colleagues, but they also sometimes think that they don't need to use their own pronouns. To show true support and help your non-binary and trans colleagues feel a true sense of belonging, I think everyone, regardless of gender, should use pronouns, because a lot of us feel isolated if we're the only ones putting our pronouns out. And it also feels like we're easily identifiable. And this also goes hand in hand with using gender neutral ways of addressing people. Like instead of using guys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, probably be more mindful that there are non-binary folk who don't identify with that gender binary. So it would be best to use gender neutral terms like folk, everyone, even people. So yeah, that's my sense of belonging and what I think it takes.
Great. Those are also a lot of actionable points as to how we could imagine workspaces that were inclusive of trans and non-binary folks. Sonal, do you want to weigh in over here on the same question?
Yeah, sure. So it's not about just company includes us, but it also depends on people around us, how they are accepting us. So every time, if a person, I mean, whenever I meet people on the floor, they would ask me about myself, that what, just like Medha explained that there should be, acceptance in pronouns as well, whether we should use he or she. So every time a person comes to me and asks me whether what pronouns should we use for you, and that is very nice of them, and it feels, I feel more I feel like I belong to this company because they understand me, and even if they have any doubt or anything, they would just reach out to me and make it clear. So that's something I really find it interesting where I work. Thank you.
That's great. We have Prahasini with us. So Prahasini, can you hear us?
Yes, I am able to hear you all. Morning, everyone.
Good morning. I'll just repeat the question for your benefit. So I was asking regarding what does it take for a trans and non-binary person to truly feel a sense of belonging with the workplace that they are at, and what would be a few examples of that? If you would want to weigh in over here, that would be great.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. So when I decided a couple of years back, when I decided to come out, I was having my own fear, and I was thinking about quitting the job because the experience that I've got in the current workplace, so that has brought an inner fear inside me upon what would happen if I comes out at the workplace. So hence, I have the resource. Gladly, no, I have the resource, employee resource network group, then a Rainbow Network group. So I had a discussion with them, and they encouraged me to stay back, and they provided a lot of all the support that I need, and so I have demonstrated the live transition journey, which means before and post transition work, so that I have demonstrated to all my colleagues in my workplace. That's what I felt that I'm. That's what I mean, because when there is a support group is already there, so you will have a strong motivation and support which is already there to support you as and when it's needed. So I experienced in the workplace, and so last year, it's been 1 year since my completed the surgery in the month of November 2019. So and in the workplace, I've got a lot of support. So I'm so glad.
Are you done, Prahasini?
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting to see the kind of diverse experiences within trans and non-binary people of workspace. And also to a certain extent, the commonalities that we're able to find among all our experiences to a certain extent. Going on to the next question now without much ado, what is something that is often misunderstood about your gender identity, and what do you wish people would understand better? Over here, I would just like to open it up to anybody who wants to go first.
I can take this first. So,
Thank you, Meena.
yeah, I'm AFAB, which means that I was assigned female at birth, but my gender identity is non-binary and my pronouns are they, them. I think one of the biggest things that is misunderstood about a non-binary gender identity, that it is literally non-binary. It does not fall into the binaries of gender, typically the male and the female, you know. The first question I got when I came out as non-binary was whether I wanted to transition or to be a man, for lack of better term. People assumed that if I didn't identify as female, I would then naturally identify as male. But no, I identify as non-binary, which means that my gender identity lies outside this gender binary. A lot of people understand what it means to transition or to be trans more than they understand what it means to be non-binary, because to be trans man or trans woman still falls in that binary. It falls on either two ends of the spectrum. But I think it's better to think of gender as a sphere rather than a scale, where there are numerous gender identities all around, inside and outside that sphere, rather than just a sliding scale with male and female at the far ends of it. Another thing that is often misunderstood is that a person's pronouns have to match with their gender identity, and that's not the case. Gender identity and pronouns have nothing to do with each other. You can take it as two entirely independent things altogether. For example, I used to identify with she, they pronouns just a little while ago, and I recently switched to they, them pronouns, but my gender identity has always been non binary, regardless of whether I had she pronouns or they pronouns. So it doesn't mean that all non binary people have they, them pronouns. People can have whatever pronoun that they identify with, whether it's they, them, she, they, she, her, he, him, even ze, zim, zizer, all of that. So those are the two things that I think people misunderstand most about my gender identity or the non binary gender identity.
Great. Aditya, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah. So when I initially came out, not many were aware of what a trans man the term means, and about transition, and there is a possibility, or there are people who transition, and people were not aware of transgender can include trans man, trans women, that the umbrella term has a lot many of different types of people, that it denotes a spectrum. People were not aware of that, so I had to spend a lot of time educating people, and I'm happy doing that. But then again, always wished like people read about it a little bit before asking questions, because it's sometimes people unknowingly ask very sensitive questions, and unknowingly they turn out to be very annoying at times. I would say, and also when it comes to very personal questions like our body parts, private parts, and the surgeries that we have gone through. So those are things that like they had a lot of misunderstanding, like how is this possible, how is that possible, and they had a lot of questions, and they had a lot of unawareness and as well, and the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation, that also was not very evident for people. So when I came out, then they thought like, okay, then you are a lesbian. I don't know. I'm trans man. I'm transitioning. I'm going to transition to a male. So there are this confusion that they had, and this misunderstanding, and I also wanted to let everyone know that not everyone who uh, like had a haircut and then who wore masculine dresses belong to the trans men community as well. So they should not have that. They should not assume things and decide for others. That's what the
Yeah.
confusion that I had.
And one of the simplest ways in which, like, even the Supreme Court puts it in, is a right to self-determined gender. So we get to determine whatever gender we are from, and that gets to be respected. And that is precisely how it works, I guess. Going forward, I think I will lead it on to Sonal. Sonal, do you want to pitch in on the same question?
Yeah, sure. So like there is a lot of confusion going on. So like I said, in my workplace also, or anywhere I go, there are people who have no idea about our existence. So I don't feel uncomfortable with their questions. I feel that we are somewhere different from them. So it's my duty to tell them that this is how I am. This is how I'm. This is what you should be using for me. So this way, I feel. This is how I teach people around me. And yeah, I'm not at all uncomfortable with anything that happens around me. uh, I am really good at blending in now. I'm trying to adapt myself with people who are not like us. So that's a good thing about you know being who you are. Thank
That's
you.
great. I'm so glad to hear that. Prahasini, I'm just going to quickly go on to you now.
The same one, yeah, exactly. So at times, when a people gain more experience in the workplace, if they once they realized and accepted their own gender identity, when they decided to come out, it becomes little difficulty when a people so who are holding more number of experience. So that applies to me as well. So I've got a few numbers of years of experience in the workplace 2 years back. So when I decided to come out to my fellow colleagues in the workplace, I didn't open up immediately. So what I did was I placed a rainbow flag at my desk and I wore the lanyard which has a rainbow flag in it, which had, but people started making assumptions upon my gender identity, and often I think they got a little confused upon the sexual orientation, the sexual expression, and gender identity. So hence I decided I brought them together and I expressed what I was going through and my gender identity, etc. And I've got a full amount of support. So that's what often and while attending meetings or any virtual office events, people make incorrect pronouns because of the experience, because they have been used to calling my birth name. Sometimes when suddenly everything got changed overnight, so hence it is for them also, we will
We seem to have suddenly lost Prahasini. Hi, welcome back. We can't hear you.
I'm
You're on
sorry,
mute.
sorry. I was, yeah, the line connected and joined back. Sorry for that. And so that's what I was saying. We will need to provide some more time and for them. So the sensitization or education are two key things, so that they can really identify and see the differences between all these things. So at times it people makes that they do make mistakes, but however it will be changed forever. Yeah. And I agree with what Medar Aditya has said about using the right pronoun. Yeah, that's it. That's on my from my own experience. I've just shared it to you, everyone.
Yeah, that's great, Prahasini. Also, like, helps us appreciate the fact that within transness and non-binariness, there are so many different and varied experiences of living trans and surviving trans and flourishing trans. So the next question actually stems from what everybody has been saying. And this is regarding what are the practical steps that, let us say, a workspace can take to make itself more inclusive of trans and non-binary people. So I'm actually going to go the other way around and invite Sonal to speak first on this, and then we could go to Prahasini, Medha, and Aditya.
When I joined this company, I was the first trans woman. So immediately the HR person, they called me and asked me what are the issues that you are facing over here. And the most important thing is obviously washroom. I told them clearly that I feel comfortable using a ladies' bathroom, but the girls around me, they might because they don't know me and they will feel uncomfortable. So this is when they took immediate steps, and there is a gender neutral bathroom, a washroom at every floor. So that is the first thing that there was a quick change in this company, and I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
That's great. Prahasini, just go next if you can.
Yes, I will. Yeah, I will go next. Of course, yeah. One is the outreach program that my our workplace. So two things. They started already initiating these two things. One is on the outreach that they um, got a tie up with the Pride Circle and joining and participating in the RISE program, especially to recruit people from the LGBTIQ plus community. So that's on the outreach part, not just with the Pride Circle, and they also hold hands with the periphery and other local community support groups and providing as and when support needed. So that's a really good one. And secondly, uh, the Transcend program, which they launched a couple of years back, and it's kind of a 6 months intensive kind of program, and they recruit transgender persons at the workplace. Just the purpose of that specific program is to create the corporate exposure to the people who have had not experience in the corporate sector. So that was a key one, and there were chances that the people might get full-time role if everything goes well. So that's one that is in progress. That's an ongoing one, and we also, the network in my organization invites people from the community and invited to them to share their own experiences in the not just in the workplace and as well as what are the struggle that they are undergoing in their day-to-day life. So that specific program called Pride Talk that was launched around, I believe, 6 months back. So these are the couple of programs and events which were initiated by my own organization, and so they are already taking a lot of progressive actions and steps to ensure that the workplace that I work is already in the LGBT plus friendly workplace, and they are taking a lot of steps in it. Yeah, so these are all the steps that they are already taking it. Anyways, but more number of ways to do or work to do in this space. So Trishna, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next, Medha, if you could go.
Yeah, thanks, Sai. So I know that inclusive policies are really important, and those are really great points raised by Prahasini and Sonal. But I would like to focus a little bit on the softer aspects of things, like the day-to-day interaction and appropriate inclusive language. The first thing would be dress code. I know a lot of organizations have started to do away with dress code. Traditional formal wear is known to be extremely gendered. And I myself have been told in the past to wear a formal skirt instead of formal pants, as that would be more appropriate. Companies can give employees the option to select whatever kind of formal clothing they want, regardless of gender. And that's the best way to have a dress code. Not in terms of gender, but simply in terms of formals if they absolutely need formal wear. The second thing would be pronoun usage, as mentioned before. A lot of trans people also identify on the traditional binary scale and thus use he, him, or she, her pronouns. But there are many non conforming gender identities that fall under the broad category of trans, the umbrella term like genderqueer, gender fluid, non-binary. And we use alternative pronouns like they, them, ze, ze, etc. So, I mean, we could also use he, she, of course, as mentioned before. I think companies can encourage all employees to wear sort of name badges or have email signatures with their preferred name and pronouns so that trans and non-binary folk don't feel left out or exposed, and that people don't assume anyone else's pronouns. The third thing would be to have a peer-to-peer system where cisgender heterosexual people can speak to trans and non-binary people, hear their stories, appreciate their challenges, and gain empathy. I've noticed that that's the best way to educate people about trans and non-binary issues, because talking to one of us firsthand um, will give you firsthand exposure to what we face. In fact, at Pride Circle, that's what we do. We talk and talk and talk about things. Um, However, this must, of course, only be done if the trans or non-binary person has the bandwidth to do so. I have to add that it isn't the responsibility of the trans or non-binary person to educate anyone about their identity, because it can sometimes be extremely exhausting. The fourth point and the last point I have to add is have workshops and sessions on gender identity and sexuality, because more than reluctance and unwillingness to stand up for trans and non-binary colleagues, research by the Harvard Business Review suggests that people don't stand up against bias and homophobia simply because they lack knowledge and confidence to fight prejudice. So, conducting workshops to educate people on trans and non binary identities might help them gain the confidence to stand up for their trans and non binary colleagues.
Thank you so much, Medha. And attitudinal changes is something that we are always hoping for in the long run, and policies will change with time for sure. But if the attitudes change, we feel included. Going on to Aditya, do you want to pitch in on the same?
Yeah. So, what my company had helped me with my transition then was in like the same things that already people covered: the gender neutral restrooms, sensitization workshops, the inclusive policies, all that. And then the one most important thing that they had done was the inclusion of uh, gender reassignment surgeries as part of medical cover, uh, included that in the insurance. So that was very it was necessity for me back then, because these surgeries cost a fortune, and there is no insurance policies out there who are available for trans people and cover the illnesses for the trans people. So I could not just go to any insurance firm and ask for insurance policy for myself if I declare myself a transgender. That was the case then. Uh, I'm sure it hasn't changed much now either. But yeah, so inclusion of this in the corporate policy, and other than that, a strong ally network where like-minded people could come and organize LGBT awareness activities. And ally network is very helpful because we can always we know that there is a safe space to reach out to in case we come up with something. And the sensitization workshops was very helpful in spreading more awareness to the team members, my managers, because I was transitioning while I was working with the same team, and the transition is not uh, something that involves only the person who is transitioning. It happens to everyone around as well. So they also grow as a different person, more accepting person. So that. Uh, that inclusiveness in the company is something that has been very helpful as well. And we had a program where people share stories, their people from the community share stories and their experiences. So and it would be sent out to a ally network and a community, like people who are interested to know. So that also helped more people to gain the confidence to come out, to feel safe, and have a forum where we can discuss on issues and then work on that, addressing that. And we have strong out leaders who are from the community. So we always had someone to look up to, and like to have a role model from the community means a lot. Yep. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Aditya. I think that sums up overall a lot of issues that trans people face, but at the same time, a lot of like spaces that trans people want to create within workspaces, and to like uh, for those atmospheres to be more inclusive, for those atmospheres to include more people who belong to similar identities as us. And right now, just going on to the next question very quickly. So I just want to ask this one question, and maybe everybody could take like a little while longer to answer this. Is what is the role of allies when we talk about this? Like what can allied colleagues do to make your workspace experience more positive?
Yeah.
So they are instrumental in terms of creating an inclusive workplace, not just for the LGBT plus community, for and the other employee resource network groups as well, I would say. So because they play a key role, like I said earlier, and because they need to develop and share, which means, for example, for you may being a trans person, so at times not from physical health, often I get um, disappointed and a little sad about my mental health. I often not share it was as a result of the hormone that I have been undertaking, or it could be for various reasons. So hence, at times my main at times it is not my mental health is not stable at times. So for which I need someone who need to hear about what I'm going through mentally, apart from the physical one. So in this case, or in this specific case, so the ally must understand what that person undergoes. So it is not we are not looking for any specific financial support. Of course, the moral support plays a key role rather than the financial aspect. So when it comes to the workplace, so they they should be in a caring, so they need to understand how the process involves, especially the transition process before and after, and what are all the struggles, so that they can help the trans colleagues in the workplace to ensure that they are safe and secure, especially in the workplace. And they need to spread a word, not just in the workplace. They need to keep spreading the awareness upon trans persons and their life within their family members. They need to have a lot more effective discussions within their own family members. So that is a way that the ally membership, or so it will grow stronger and stronger than we expect. That's what I think. And of course, the sensitization of the education because all of a sudden we cannot ask people to suddenly understand how a trans person could feel, or what are the process involved. So it needs the education, or the kind of a sensitization program, kind of training, so as to enable them to create more visibility in the space. So that's key. That's the important one. That's what I felt. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prahasini. Sonal, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So what I feel mostly is that I never have any much expectation from my colleague, but anyway, if they want to support us, so they could, we have our own pride circles. They could join us and learn about us, and in that is the way they can learn about us and support people like us. And apart from that, I would also, it would be really helpful if there are some other, event in workplaces where people could be more educated about it. So that would be a great help. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Also, in the sense of like creating spaces for engagement instead of just being available to engage at all times, which could be kind of exhausting, would be a good way to like talk about inclusivity to a certain extent. And yeah, Medha, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Sai. So
Yeah.
I feel like an ally plays such an important role at the workplace. We've spent so much time talking about all the things that need to be done to make the workplace feel safer for LGBTQI plus people. And there are so many tips that we have for organizations from lived experience. It would be tragic if that went to deaf ears and the marginalized were the only ones fighting the big fight. That's where the ally comes in. They take what we have to say and they use their privilege to spread the word and to pave the way for structural change. Our voices are powerful, and allies help us to make sure that we're heard. The job of being an allied colleague is quite simple. The rule of thumb would be to listen to what's being said by queer and trans people. We know our experience best, and although it might seem easier to decide for us or to assume things, it won't get us anywhere. So listen to what affects us and give us a space to live our most authentic life at work. And do your part in making the workplace safer and more inclusive for us. It's one thing to be acceptive of my pronouns, but you are truly being an ally when you use them too. Use your own pronouns, use my pronouns. We don't need people to accept us anymore. What we need is support and upliftment. So, you know, I would suggest that allies, if they feel uncomfortable and have any discomfort talking about this, step out of the discomfort of our marginalization and help empower our voices and the voice of every trans and non-binary person at your workplace.
Yeah, that's great. Like for communities that have largely been kept at the margins, as Medha rightly put it, it is very difficult to interact with the mainstream because you're looked at as somebody who belongs to the margins continuously, and uh, it just becomes difficult to have a same level playing field where you talk to people on the same level. So yeah, those conversations with allies would really help both the community and the allies themselves in the imagination of a world that is beyond gender to a certain extent, that doesn't take into cognizance the fact that there are trans people working with you, and that is never an issue, right? All right. So on that note, Aditya, do you want to add something over here?
Yeah. So uh, the ally colleagues and the support that or the way they can make our lives better. It's not always the big things. It's the littlest of things that they do, the subtle things that they do to make sure that our own colleagues don't pick on us. And whenever there is any uh, lame jokes or sensitive comments made, they can pitch in and correct. Because when it always comes from the community, don't say this, don't discriminate this, it might the way that will be seen is different from uh, people who are outside the community coming and pitching in and showing the support and showing the care. So it makes a whole lot of difference. And any little things that they do to helping us, like for example, during my transition, um, after my surgery, my uh, colleagues were there, uh, like with me, and they showed that care. And whenever I had any uh, difficulties in reaching out to some place, they were there and covering up for the from the team members. And like when I go to restroom, initially when I started changed in I changed the restroom and I started going to started using the male restroom. uh, my friends came with me to make sure that I don't feel comfortable, and the others don't discriminate me. So it's the little things that they do that makes a whole lot of difference out there, and it can be anything. Yeah, these are just examples of what has happened to me, but it can be anything that they do to for as friends to help us. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aditya. And yeah, like hearing all of you speak about these things has been obviously like a very uh, powerful experience, if I could use that word. And yeah, the experiences that we've all come together with and spoken about, apart from being varied across the gender cloud, as Medha rightly put it, or sphere, uh, it is obviously also a great platform to talk about what is it that companies that are looking to be more inclusive, right? Any company or any workspace that is trying to take affirmative action to include more trans people and non-binary persons uh, into their workspaces. What would actionable steps for that be, apart from maybe just policy? Some of you could focus on policy and some of you could talk about attitudinal or infrastructural changes that might be required for the same. This might sound a little repetitive to the previous question, and that's why I asked it last, if there were any uh, actionable points that we would further like to contribute to this conversation.
Okay, I can go. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that there's a
Yeah,
difference
Medha, go ahead.
between diversity and inclusion, right? So the earliest DNI policies implemented right at the beginning were focused more on anti-discrimination than inclusion. These policies started evolving to focus more on bringing about equality or parity with benefits like insurance for same-sex partners, insurance for gender reaffirmation surgery, um, and leveling out that recruitment playing field. So we've reached a point in time now where a lot of companies offer the above benefits. And so it's time to shift to the next wave of diversity and inclusion, which focuses more on the inclusion part. And that would be the culture shift. Over here, it's not just about the employer or organization providing equal benefits in terms of policies, but it's also about every single employee in the organization coming together to foster an environment of belonging and inclusion for people from the community. For example, at Pride Circle, we make a conscious effort to discuss recent events and updates pertaining to the LGBTQIA plus community in India and abroad. And we root for the same stuff, whether it's the striking down of Section 377, marriage equality law, etc. So that creates a sense of belonging and inclusion. Another thing that we do is share articles and news reports on our work WhatsApp group. So I think to bring about a true sense of inclusion at the workplace, everyone must be aware of the struggles and achievements that people from the community face on a daily basis. Otherwise, everyone's just off in their own world, living in their privilege. And I think it takes a lot to step down from that pedestal of privilege and look at how certain systemic structures and laws affect people who don't have the same privilege as you. So my advice to companies looking to foster more inclusion would be that everyone needs to be involved, not just the D&I department or the HR department, but all employees, right from accounts to engineering. Get everyone involved in creating this inclusive environment on a day-to-day basis. After all, I mean, what good are policies if the trans or non-binary person doesn't feel included every single day? And just like you have a screening process to hire LGBT folk, to have diversity at your company, maybe also have a screening process to identify homophobes and transphobes while hiring so that you can educate them and know who to focus your efforts on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Also reversing the lens to a certain extent, and trying to make sure that the atmosphere that is built with the larger workforce in mind and not the marginalization being in the focus at all times. Thank you so much, Medha, for that. Prahasini, I see you unmuted. Do you want to go next?
Yes, I just wanted to add a couple of things in addition to what Medha has rightly put forwarded. So thanks, Medha, for that one. So I feel that in our organization, of course, now it becomes mandatory for any sort of companies or organizations to build the gender neutral restroom as part of the transgender protection of acts draft rule, which was defined and circulated to the wider audience. So now that becomes mandatory now, where that comes under the part of the infrastructure development area. Moreover, when it comes to sensitization programs, so they shouldn't be targeting only the employees just to count on the numbers. So they must include mm, all staff. So like, for example, from the property services or from the facility team, support staffs, housekeeping, etc. So as to create a sensitization program according to their languages, it could be in the regional languages, not necessarily be in English. So that's what we in that NatWest group that we did in India, created the sensitization track according to the regional languages and promoting the awareness about LGBT plus community people. That's one thing that's ongoing. One that sounds good to me. So and creating the recruitment part that plays a key role. So not just focusing on the graduate from the trans and non-binary colleagues, and especially when it comes to the trans persons, majority of our community trans persons would have dropped out from their school and couldn't able to continue their education. So probably the organizations could um, uh, provide them the right sort of job. Not just it's not mandatory for the staff to get involved in the system work. So there could be a lot more, like I said, the property or facility division, transport, etc. So that they can put they can recruit people into their respective domains according to their qualification. So these are the couple of things I just wanted to.
Thank you so much, Prahasini. I just have a quick announcement for anybody who's listening in. If you have any questions, kindly use the Q&A box that you can see below and drop in your questions, and we'll be able to answer them shortly. I'll request Sonal and Aditya to maybe, if you have any points to add over here, try to keep it brief so that we can start answering questions. I'm hoping that we have an engaging audience and that we will be able to interact and bring out more points through that. Sonal, do you want to go first?
Well, I do not have any extra point to add, because where I work, they have actually formed a community for people like us. Where we do have a group, but currently it is inactive because of the lockdown. But I would like to highlight the point Medha actually explained, that there should be some awareness programs from people who are afraid of, who are homophobes or transphobes. So that will really work out. So that's the point I would really love to highlight. Thank you.
So everyone have already summed up all the policies. Just one note which I wanted to add. Companies would request them to be more vocal and no need to hesitate to show the support, like like back in the past, what I have seen is people try to keep everything secretive when they are talking about LGBT, and when they are talking about the support, and instead of talking out in the open, let's go to some meeting room and stay isolated and talk about it secretly. There is no need to do that. This should become a part of our life. This is a part of our life, and we should not hesitate to talk about it. We should talk about it out in the open, and we should talk about it and we should work on it the same way we should do for any other thing. This is not something different. This is not something that should be shushed about. So that's something that I wanted to add.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, I think we'll just go on to the questions really quickly. The first question, I would also take the liberty of maybe responding to it for a small half a minute, probably. So the first question is, I'll read out, it's by an anonymous attendee. It says, don't you all think self-identification should also be regionalized, like using local language like Hijra, Aravani, while the queer non-binary should also use regional words so that we can bring more awareness and brings more reach. Using pronouns may make us think we are aping the West, like how people think homosexuality is a Western concept. Um, I just wanted to point out here that Hijra, Aravani, etc. are also cultural and to a certain extent associated with religious identities. These are identities that are built on the idea of a community that lives together, that has social customs and norms that are built around creating alternative family structures for people who are trans. Now, not necessarily everybody identifies or is part of those structures, but the fact is that they can still identify as trans, right? That is one of the points that I wanted to raise. And further, many a times using regionalized languages, the problem also becomes that we are not able to collectivize as a community nationally. And secondly, a lot of the words that have been used to refer to trans and non-binary people have been extremely offensive. To say the least, or have been used in a derogatory manner historically. So the very attempt to reclaim those words falters to start with. Now I'm going to open this up for anybody else who wants to respond, and then we can go on to the next question.
Yeah, you
Okay.
covered it well, Sai.
Sorry, go ahead, Pasini, please.
No, please go ahead. No, so Sai covered it well. So do not put us any more tags to us. So don't put any tag to us using the regional languages. That's what I just wanted to call out. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks, Sai. I think that was really great. The point that you raised there. I just want to address the pronoun part. As far as I understood from the question, they said that using pronouns may make us think that we are aping the West, like how people think homosexuality is a Western concept. I think that over here we need to focus more on what comfort is and belonging is to the queer person rather than what people in society will think. I think that's the first problem we have with Indian society, and I think we need to shift that focus, and start educating people about pronouns and how it's not a Western concept, rather than just not using it altogether, thinking that people might think it's a Western concept.
Yeah, and as long as we are using English, pronouns are inescapable. With that, which I would not agree with, or we use pronouns as a way of respect. Going forward, the next question is very interesting, and I think we can spend some time answering this. It says, so there is a catch-22 situation for a mid-sized organization. We don't focus on hiring LGBT people, persons, I'm just adding that there, because recruitment says we are not prepared. We must change our policies and operation. Leadership says we won't change as we don't have employees to do for. What does an IND head does then? It's a chicken comes first or the egg kind of a question. So I'm just going to leave it to my panelists to answer.
Yeah.
So ideally, it is not. Yeah, please go ahead, Aditya.
No, please go ahead, Prahasin.
Okay. Okay. So ideally, I feel that it is not always necessary for the organization to have the community members in the place in order to develop their own policies and structure. So ideally, it is as a part of the culture. So they need to create the LGBT plus work a friendly environment, okay, and then so that people may feel comfortable in coming out at the workplace, so that they can start taking baby steps in terms of promoting and supporting the colleagues in the workplace. So uh, and it is not necessary and always not mandatory for the people to come out. So it's their own choice to come out at the workplace when they are ready to go. That's what I feel.
Yeah, Aditya?
Yeah, and what I would say is companies should not wait for hiring LGBT people specifically to start having inclusive policies or to do something about it. And when they say they are hiring LGBT talent, they are looking for people who are already out. So the companies might already be having people who are from the community and are not out because they do not have uh, policies or things that they are looking for. So no one can say for sure that there are no people from the community, because people don't walk around with the tag like, hey, I am this, hey, I am this. So one can never be sure. What we can always do is be prepared in case something comes up, or like be inclusive so that we can offer them a safe space which they are looking for. That's it.
Yeah. I just have one very quick point to make. So basically, I feel like whenever we are talking about communities from the margins, inclusion is not the question. Why the willful exclusion should be the focus of our question. And moreover, the point is that universal design and the conversations around universal design are basically that any person, by the very fact that they are a person, should be able to access, should be able to be employed, should have the same rights as everybody else. And if in the formation of a company, that kind of a universal design could be incorporated, then the question of why include would never turn up, and we would just not exclude anyone then. Medha, Sonal, do you want to pitch in on this quickly?
Thanks. I actually wanted to say something very close to what you just said, but you put it across really well. I just want to add that if we have these policies of inclusion specifically for the community, it kind of makes this divide like us and them. As you said, everything should be universal. The company should have these policies to start off with. There shouldn't be, if we have trans employees or queer employees, we will have these policies. These policies should just exist regardless.
Sonal, do you have any concluding remarks on the same?
Like you said, like you already said, that there is no need of inclusion policies or anything, because a person should be hired based on their qualification and skills. So it is not needed to be specifically mentioned LGBTQ people, because I never thought of there will be any inclusion for LGBTQ people. It was just because of because we have special programs like job fair and all, where we feel like, yeah, this is only for people like us. But after coming to this place, I feel like I don't have to, I'm not afraid of going to any company, even if there is no LGBTQ hired. I'll just go and I would give my best based on what skills I have. That's all.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, we are also hoping to see as many queer people be mainstreamed into workspaces as possible. And obviously, inclusion would be a question that we would ask there. But as I already stated, we need to ask ourselves to a certain extent as to why we exclude. And I think that would just make the process of inclusion much more easier, because we just have to take out the root cause then. I'll quickly sum up what we have done in this entire panel. We've spoken about policies, we've talked about attitudinal changes that could possibly be brought about in the workspaces. We've talked about infrastructure, including restrooms, washrooms, job security, support through any person, for any person who wants to go through a medical transition and might require the resources, including the kind of emotional, psychological support that a workspace could provide by not being by facilitating through this process. And we've spoken about the role of allies that could be integral to the entire inclusion of trans people per se, and non-binary persons. So I would like to sum up the session here, if I have the permission of all my panelists. We have approximately a minute to the close, so I'm hoping that that should work. Thank you so much. You have all been great. Your experiences has truly enriched, I'm sure, any person who's been listening in, and mine for sure. I have learned a lot on this panel, and it's been great knowing and speaking to each and every one of you. I'm so glad. Have a nice day, everyone, and please stay tuned for more panels to come by.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.